Okay, Kang the Conqueror versus Thanos. This is kind of a different sort of one. Kang the Conqueror, depending on how you look at his lineage, is sometimes referred to as Nathaniel Richards, which makes him an ancestor of the Richards bloodline. He also has an ancestor linked through the Doom bloodline. So this is like the great, like 40th century child of the lineage of Doom and the Richards clan. He's also referred to as the Conqueror. He pretty much is a time-traveling individual who has gone back in time quite a few times to try to essentially conquer. Initially, he didn't have armor, went back in time, met Doom, who's one of his ancestors, and was like, you know what? I kind of dig that armor. It's a pretty sweet armor. So you get a guy who pretty much uses like 40th century technology. Putting that against one of the strongest Eternals from the planet Titan. Person who's conquered the universe several times. Now, how are we taking Prime Kang, which is the strongest Kang? He actually got together with other versions of himself and tried to kill off all of the weaker versions to try to make a much stronger character. Now, Kang, ironically, has always had a problem when it comes to defeating the Avengers. He's easily been defeated by just a couple Avengers. Actually, he made a robot of Spider-Man to help him confuse the rest of the Avengers to kidnap them to try to actually conquer the Earth. He actually has, on occasion, done a pretty good job of it. But once the Avengers are free, they pretty easily defeat him. Ironically, in Marvel The End, when Thanos is trying to find out, like, how do I defeat this new god, he does realize that lots of the time travelers have been captured, one of course being Kang. And also, I want to say it is in Infinity War, the two people who actually did a pretty good job making it to Magus and potentially defeating him end up being Kang and Doctor Doom, with Doom also turning on Kang to try to actually achieve the wearing of the gauntlet before the Living Tribunal allowed the gauntlets to no longer have, the gems to no longer have disharmony, therefore activating the gauntlet and allowing Magus to pretty much easily defeat almost everybody. So I have to look at Kang the Conqueror versus Thanos. And as always, I did this through 9 criteria: intelligence, findability, strength, speed, durability. That's like how fast, that's your regenerative abilities, your stamina. And vulnerability, this will also include force fields and things of that nature. Energy projection, versatility, and X factor. So we'll get right into this. Kang is probably one of the smartest mortals, period. He is of the bloodline of Victor Von Doom and Reed Richards. That is some impressive bloodline when it comes to intelligence. Also from the 40th century, so he has a tremendous amount of information when it comes to that. I have to put that against an Eternal who's been alive for centuries. He was also a master strategist. If you read how good of a strategist he is, if you read Thanos' Imperative, he actually found a way to make himself a self-sacrifice for the Cancer Universe's version of Captain Marvel, therefore inviting death to the universe in which they killed Death to defeat them. That is an undeniable stroke of genius. Thanos actually used the reality gem to make a fake reality gem in case somebody were to try to get all of the gems together. They wouldn't actually have the last one, therefore having a false infinity gauntlet, and therefore not having supremacy. That's a level of intellect. I will give intellect definitely to Thanos. Fighting ability. When they do show that Kang is a really fantastic fighter. However, he's taking on somebody who is one of the best fighters on the planet Titan, one of the best fighters for all of the Eternals, and someone who has been shown on several occasions to handle both Thor and Thing at the exact same time, and is an expert in hand-to-hand combat, having also pretty much physically bested someone, Champion, when he had the Power Gem. Champion with the Power Gem was like Hulk squared, and he was able to physically best him in combat somewhat easily. The findability, I'm definitely going to give this to Thanos. Strength. Kang, with his equipment, has been shown to hit about a 20-ton. Thanos has been able to, without the use of the gauntlet, has been able to physically hold his own against both Thing and Thor at the exact same time. Thing, an easy 100-ton. Thor 100-ton. Thing between 80 and 100-ton. So strength, that's definitely going to Thanos. Speed. Thanos is beyond Olympic human agility. He's also been able to do things that are beyond the scale of human, that put him into the metahuman level. He's also considered to be one of the fastest when it comes to the Eternals, with the exception of the ones who are entirely geared towards speed. Versus Kang. The one advantage Kang does have is he has the ability to go back in time by seconds. So when it comes to speed, I can actually probably see with the use of the MacGuffin of being able to kind of modulate time a little bit, that speed would go to Kang. Durability. I have to look at someone who can put themselves into a time loop versus somebody who is essentially a functional immortal. I think a functional immortal is pretty much going to be able to beat somebody who can do a small loop in time. Because even though Kang can go back in time a couple of seconds, not going to tremendously help him out that much against someone like Thanos. If you go back in time by a couple of seconds, well, that's all well and fine, but you're taking on somebody who actually metabolizes cosmic energies and has been able to kill the Silver Surfer easily. So even if you can go back in time a couple of seconds, I'm pretty sure Thanos could withstand anything you can bring out. Invulnerability. Kang does have an antimatter force field, and he does have force field to take the impact of a nuclear explosion. I have to compare that with the two bigger feats that I know that Thanos has done with the use of force field. One was a direct blast by Galactus. The other was the surviving of 2 planets laden with explosives. I think an antimatter force field is pretty impressive. I think taking a shot directly from Galactus is more impressive, as well as surviving the blast of 2 planets. Energy projection. There's a lot of gadgets that Kang brings with him. He brings them a tremendous amount of gadgets. He's taking on somebody who has an acclimate when it comes to magic, psychic abilities, as well as energy projection. A cosmic level energy projection. So energy projection alone, it is Thanos. Versatility. You're probably thinking, well, Kang can travel through time. Yeah, Thanos has that too. Thanos does have a time travel machine. He calls it the time probe. Normally he sends that to gather information, because he's learned that through time travel, it's hard for someone of his desires to not go back in time and make too many massive adjustments. If you don't think he can time travel, in Marvel at the end, he went back in time to essentially stop, I forget what the guy's name was, to stop him ascending into godhood. He didn't do it directly, but he went back in time and was kind of like, okay, I'm going to stop him, so therefore I'll allow Doctor Doom to kill him. And that's impressive. And now you're looking at X Factor. Kang is a planet-wide conqueror. Kang's done a good job. He's defeated the Shi'ar. He's defeated, he's controlled Earth a couple of times. But he's a planetary danger. Thanos is a universe-level danger. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, well, Kang would just go back in time when he would face a younger Thanos. Which is probably the fight that I will do next week. So this was actually Prime Kang versus, the more classic interpretation of Thanos. And if you read Infinity, you saw Thanos pretty much take a direct shot from Thor like it was nothing. And they pretty much beat Thanos by using the built-in MacGuffin of his son. So Kang is entirely outclassed. Now, if Prime Kang were to go back in time to take on earlier Thanos, that one I'll have to go through and reread Thanos Rising and go from that aspect. What if he were to go back in time with a small amount of prep, not infinite prep. If you're back with a little bit of prep and he were to take on Thanos in his much more earlier formative years.